I first worked with Raji on the PLTS team. It was pretty much a production mapping team, so making tools to make mapping easy for folks. Very heavy into defense, that sort of area. So pretty much when Raji left, I think to the geodatabase team, I think it was, I went to tech marketing, and I've been working on web apps and kind of evangelizing ESRI software since then. It was probably about 2003, somewhere in there. So I've been in tech marketing since then. My specialty is kind of the web. Wrote a ton of ArcGIS code with Raj. I'm sure that was fond memories.
Yeah.
And probably land you a few consulting jobs too along the way.
Yeah.
But now kind of more into the, been doing more of the RESTful kind of service stuff, and that's kind of my forte now. A little bit on the utility side as well in terms of vertical markets. That's kind of what I was brought into the group to do at first, was talk about utility workflows and more energy workflows. So just a little bit about me. I lead a small team of developers in tech marketing. Our main focus these days are building more of these story maps. So I think we have a kinship over here. We spoke last time for the last meetup. So we're trying to, my team specifically is trying to make easy applications for folks to configure and use to tell stories with maps. We think it's a great idea. We love that mission. This is an example. Our team didn't work on this directly, but it's kind of this overall story maps mission at ESRI. So what I'm going to focus more on today is ArcGIS Online. ESRI has a huge suite of products, as I'm sure you've seen or used before. Maybe just a quick show of hands who's used ESRI, at least. Okay. Who's using it now, weekly? Okay, part of your workflows.
ESRI or ESRI?
I'll let either one slide. But that's good to know. So obviously it's enterprise-based software, heavy into geographic information systems, GIS. ArcGIS Online is it's been around for actually quite a while. It's fueled a lot of our base maps. And we've been pushing more and more ESRI functionality to the cloud, to ArcGIS Online. So trying to make it easier for folks to build maps, pull in different data sources into maps and share it throughout their organization. So I'll focus a bit on that today. I think that's kind of appropriate since a lot of you also are developers and startups, so this is kind of a good way to enter in from a developer perspective. And also I'll show a bunch of story maps which are free for you guys to download, hack away, have fun with. So I'm going to go easy on the slides, but just a little bit of, I guess, positioning and background about what we're going to do today. We'll do a quick tour of ArcGIS Online, and we'll get right into some demos. This will be a pretty heavy demo. That's why I need a sitting device over here. Something I've been thinking about a lot is responsive maps along with responsive web design. So when we set out to build a map, we want to make sure that map is good on every device, as I'm sure all of you think about as well. Again, story maps, and then we'll look at some of the APIs that come along with ArcGIS Online. So what is ArcGIS Online? Well, it's really a platform for building maps and applications. We have a shot here of ArcGIS Online. And it's really a place where folks can come in and build maps and share them with either in their organization or out to the public. It's one of the I guess, really great talking points is the content that's within ArcGIS Online. There's data that ESRI produces, whether it's demographic data or base map data, but the user community at large are participating and putting quite a bit of authoritative content into ArcGIS Online as well, whether it's fire perimeters or some other geologic type of data. It's really built on sharing, so there's a whole system of user controls and group administration that you can do within ArcGIS Online. Obviously, all your social networks are there as well, so as soon as you build a map, you can easily share it with those that you want to through whatever channels you want. There's interactive mapping tools, so it's not just, I spent a lot of time over the years building mapping applications, writing symbology through code, as I'm sure some of you have. ArcGIS Online kind of abstracts that away a little bit. It lets you build your map and your layers on this mapping platform, and then as a developer, you can make those layers do interesting things and concentrate on building your application. There's also APIs, as I mentioned. There's web APIs for consuming maps from ArcGIS Online, and also bits, runtime components that actually make up the full ESRI suite that you can license and build very focused applications in a native context. So on Android phones, iOS, we'll get into some of those. I'll go through that in demos. So there's really two types of subscriptions with ArcGIS Online. There's a personal subscription. You can just sign up and start creating maps. You can add your own data, whether it's ArcGIS server service or whether it's CSV, kind of flat file based. You can just drag and drop that onto your map. Save your maps. You can access that across different devices. And again, you can share. Now, the other type of subscription is an organizational subscription. And that's really, I think, one of the highlights of the organizational subscription is for large organizations like, say, a Department of Transportation, they can have a little bit more control over who is part of that organization, who can actually create services through hosted services through ESRI. You can control who can author them, who can create the services, who can view the services. So these hosted services are kind of a central point where you can actually cook tiles, host them on ArcGIS Online. It's not part of your server infrastructure anymore, it's hosted in ArcGIS Online. Or you can do the hosted, which is either cache services or feature services. That's a little bit rawer. I'll get into that a little bit later. Instead of just sending tiles down to the client images, you're basically sending everything, the geometry, the attributes. You can do editing workflows, that sort of thing. Aside from user administration, you can actually skin these. You can skin the organizational account as well. So you can put a banner on the front of it, put your organization's logo on it, and actually control the kind of apps that people can create within that organization too, if you've built apps for certain branding standards that you have in your organization. So a little bit more on hosted services. I kind of just touched briefly on them. Within ArcGIS Online, you can create hosted services. Tile services, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, are just tiles that can stream down to the client application. Feature services, everything comes down in a JSON format with geometry and attributes. And then there's also a geocoding service at this point. There could be other services in the future, but these are the services that exist right now from a hosted perspective. So we'll get a little bit into the hosted services now. Let's jump in. We'll do a quick demo. So I didn't plan. I thought about this towards the end that the first presenter was going to be more on the Wi-Fi end, so it's kind of appropriate for this demo. So this is ArcGIS Online. I'm going to sign in here with my account, and this is a personal account I'm signing into. So when you first sign in, you can either look at some of the featured maps that ESRI are pushing out. If you have an organizational account, this is the area that you can control with maps for your organization. There's a gallery of maps that users are contributing to. Here's groups, and these are actually my groups right now. And you can actually have your content as well. You can browse the content that you've created in the past. What I'm going to first do is just create a map. So let's do that by using a data source that I just pulled down from the New York Open Data Initiative. So I think it's newyorkdata.gov. It's all the open data that they have there. This is just the Wi-Fi location within Manhattan. So this was just a CSV file, and it did contain lat long. So you can see it just added right to the map. Your CSV file or text file can have addresses that'll just geocode them automatically before you put them on the map. So we just have kind of just basic symbology right now. What we'll do next is
what can you drag and drop? Sorry, besides CSV?
You can drag and drop, yeah, several different file formats. There's here, I can show you the GUI actually. It's probably a good way to show you. So if just pop into the help here, there's several different file formats. You can drag and drop, and that's mainly CSV, text, and GPX files. You can do a shapefile as well. You just zip it up and drop that right onto the map, and it'll show it. But right now, we just have kind of the raw data that's displayed. So we should just be, good cartographers and map makers, try to clean this up a little bit. The purpose of the map, at least that I want to make, just talks about what the type of Wi-Fi facility is, if it's fee-based or if it's free Wi-Fi. So let's go through and we'll change the symbology here. And let's change it on unique symbol. And I did have a type field, so let's choose that. I have two right here. I have fee and I have free-based. So let's change the symbol there. I'm a big fan of these big push pins. So let's choose that. I don't know why, they just look really easy. And let's do the same for free. And we'll change the font size here to make that a little bigger. And we'll apply that. There it is. You get to see a little bit of the contrast here in terms of some patterns that exist, but it's not quite ready yet. Let's go into the fields. And I'm going to configure some pop-ups. If you remember, when I first clicked on our pop-ups, we have a whole slew of attributes that are on this layer. I'm not sure I really want to expose the X and the Y and all this other information. So what I really just want to show people are the name of the facility, and let's keep the phone number and the type and the URL. The URL just links to the facilities. So if I save my pop-up, it's a little bit cleaner, it's a little better. So that works for me. Let's go through here and we'll save it. And right now I'm going to save it onto my content. I'm going to enter a name for this map. We'll call it map Wi-Fi locations. You can tag it so that when folks search it in ArcGIS Online, they can pick it up by a tag and tag it with. I'm going to choose, let's see here, New York City, and I'm going to add a couple more tags. I'll choose Wi-Fi, and just a summary of what the map is. And what it will be is Wi-Fi analysis, and we'll save it into my content. And there we go. The next thing I want to do is actually share that, and I'm going to share it with a group that I have. So let me just share that with everyone, and I'll also share it with members of a group that I've created. I'll jump into that group right now. That's my content, groups. This is a group that I created. You can create as part of your account. You can create a group. In this case, I've done this beforehand, just for brevity's sake. And I'll show you what the editing palette looks like here. You can name the group. You can add a summary of what the group is all about, a little bit more description. And you can make the group either public or you can make it private. If it's public, pretty much anyone can just apply to the group. If it's private, you have to invite people to the group for them to have access to it. So it's got a little bit more constraints there. Okay, so now we have our map. Oh, you know what I want to do? Let's change out the base map. We have a new light gray base map, which I think kind of looks a little bit better, kind of a slate kind of look to it. Okay, so we'll save that out. And the next thing I'll do is, this is great, it gives me a little bit of an idea of where the Wi-Fi locations are, but I'd like to see more of a density surface, especially since we keep seeing heat maps tonight. So let's do that right now through ArcGIS. And log into my account here. I could just search for that map within desktop. And we've got our Manhattan Wi-Fi locations. And let's open that in ArcGIS desktop. So what I could do is open desktop itself right away and just search for it in ArcGIS Online, but it's kind of a neat feature where you can open it directly from ArcGIS Online. Any questions while we just pause for a moment here? Sure.
Is there a new web interface for that book? Because it's different than what I used to.
Yeah, there's a new splash screen on it that changed a little while ago.
Not especially. I mean the features in the.
It's been that sort of look and feel for a few months now. I think. Yeah, maybe since the last time. Yeah, sure.
Do you have the good stuff like Spatial Analysis and things?
Not on ArcGIS Online yet, but let's get to that right now. So that's the next part of it now. So what we'll do now is we'll use a little Spatial Analysis engine, our friend in the back there. What I'd like to do is show more of a heat map of dispersion of where these Wi-Fi locations are. So when someone looks at a map, they can say, okay, well, if I'm traveling in maybe this the west side of Manhattan, there's more Wi-Fi locations, get more of a sense of that. So what we'll do is use some of the geoprocessing tools that exist within the desktop. And I'll jump into our Spatial Analyst tools. And we'll use density, kernel density. And kernel density is a nice tool to create heat maps with. And what I'm going to do is just drag and drop my my Wi-Fi point location directly into the input here. And we'll just change a few of these parameters. And the map's going to be in meters, so I'll change that as well. And in the background, it's running that geoprocessing service, basically an analysis to create a heat map from these points. And when it's finished, it'll just add it to the map. So this gives me a little bit better picture of where the locations are. Let's clean up the analysis a little bit. I'm going to change down the number of classes to just 5, and actually the ramp as well, color ramp. Let's choose this one. And I'm going to make this kind of lower value the color. Let's apply that. And I'm actually going to adjust the transparency a little bit on this layer as well, so that we can actually see some of the base map. All right, and let's turn off our locations. So now we have a little bit better of an idea of where these Wi-Fi locations are. So the next thing I'll do is share this. I want to share this layer and actually add it to my map that we just created on ArcGIS Online. So we did a bit of analysis in desktop. Now let's push this up to ArcGIS Online. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the layers that I don't want to cache. I'm basically going to cache this layer. So I'm going to take out the base map and the Wi-Fi locations, so we're just left with our analysis layer. Alright, and now we're going to, there's a new dialog now that lets you share your layers effectively with ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to publish the service. And we'll name this Manhattan Wi-Fi location. So GM for GeoMeetup. And we have some analysis tools that we can run on our layer to make sure that there's nothing we should fix from a performance perspective. From a capabilities perspective, we could turn on feature access or tiled mapping. In this case, I just want to send images down to the client. I'm not going to turn on actually raw geometries to send down since it is a raster layer. You can define your caching size, so what different scales you want to go to. You can define what your tiling scheme is. In this case, we're using the ArcGIS Online being in Google Maps tiling scheme. You can give some more item description, so some more metadata about your application, and then finally, or about your layer, and finally you can share it. So I'm going to share that with everyone, and let's go off and publish that. Right now it's just packaging up that layer. It's packaging up all these details that we fed it in terms of what the tiling scheme is going to be. It's going to ship it back up to ArcGIS Online and then cook the tiles in ArcGIS Online.
So the tiles are pre-computed on your machine?
The layer is pre-computed in my machine, and then based upon the tiling scheme that I choose, it'll send that image up and then cut tiles for those different levels that I've chosen. So we, you know, for the levels of detail, I think I did something like city down to block level. You could make it even larger, and then that would take a longer, the cast job would take longer. All right, so let's jump back into ArcGIS Online, and we now have our map that we were working on, and let's search for a layer. And we could go into the group that I'm a member of, so I could search ArcGIS Online for something. I could search the web, like the whole web, or GIS server, my content, any of these groups that I've created. But let's just search ArcGIS Online and show you how this is pushed out across the, from a tags perspective. So I entered in Wi-Fi, and it came up with just these tags that I added. So we added that to our map now. And there's our map. There's our layer, our hotspot layer. So now what I want to do is just add a little bit more, I guess, interesting information to the map for this public awareness of Wi-Fi areas group that I created. So I want to add a little bit of demographics to kind of show the types of folks that have access to this data, access to these Wi-Fi locations. ESRI does produce you know, a bunch of base maps, but they also produce some business analyst data, which is pretty compelling, I think. This is our tapestry data, and it's effectively just a whole bunch of demographic data. I think it's about 30 variables, and they classify it into these tapestry segments, these life segments. So based on those variables, you can get some pretty interesting information. So let's just do a little layer review here.
Do you need a special license for the business analyst stuff, or is that included?
For the layer that I'm choosing right here, this is within ArcGIS Online. You can use that, yeah. But if you're doing more advanced analysis with business analysis, allows you to create study areas. You can do, you know, drive time study areas or buffered study areas, more of a circular study areas. Submit that to Business Analyst Online and get back pretty detailed reports with all these variables. This is one of the more, I guess, coarser layers that's available. Yes?
What are the regions? Are those standard regions, census tracts, or?
They're census. It's these right here are block groups, but it drills down and then drills back up. It'll do block groups and other common geographies like census tracts, and so on. So no real surprise, I guess, to me here, but you can see the Wi-Fi locations are all around these life segments or these tapestry segments that are pretty affluent, I would say. Let's take a look at this one here. Laptops and lattes. So let's jump to the description. So this is one of those categories of tapestry. Again, a bunch of demographic variables, and this is really interesting information, especially from like a target marketing perspective. At least that's what I always get a lot of oohs and ahs about. Kind of gives you a little bit of synopsis about the types of folks that live there, what their interests are, so on. So for laptops and lattes, these folks have notebooks or computers. They're on their of the age group that are generally doing that. So what I'm going to do here actually is just adjust a little transparency, make our map look a little bit better, a little bit glaring this tapestry layer. And let's save that. Now what I'm going to do next is actually create a web application. So you could take this, since this web map is public, I allow everyone to see it. I could send this URL right here to folks that could see the same thing, but it would be embedded in this map viewer. So what we can do now when we share is actually make a web application. And these are some of the templates that ESRI's created. One of them that I particularly like, that I think Alex probably had a hand in at one point, Alex is still in the room, are these story maps. Alex Hewitt was actually on the team that was first starting to develop these a long time ago. But they're really some pretty neat templates that allow you to basically create a web application without really writing any code. So let's call this, let's see, Wi-Fi analysis. Save that. And we'll take a look at this item. Let's open up the application. I just chose a web application right now. It's loading in, the web app is loading in the application from, it's loading in the web app from ArcGIS Online. There's a little bit of the legend. Here's some of our tapestry segments that I was talking about. So pretty neat. You can create a pretty compelling map. If I added a little bit more metadata, you could tell a story in this area, which is kind of nice. And that, in a nutshell, is ArcGIS Online. I'm going to jump down to our iPhone right now. So these same maps that you save in ArcGIS Online are accessible on the ArcGIS app. I used to be a hand model, so I have a lot of these this webcam. I'm actually trying to be a little fiscally responsible, waiting for the next wave. All right, let's go to our ArcGIS app, and I could search through my groups or my maps, or I could just do a search on ArcGIS Online. I'm just going to jump to my group really quickly here. We'll go to this Manhattan Internet Access group. And we'll load up our Wi-Fi map. So again, thinking about this responsive kind of map design. And here's the map that we just created on the iPhone. And you still have your pop-ups.
Is that available for Android?
Yes, it is. We have an Android application. There's even one on Kindle. I don't have a Kindle with me. iPad, yep, yes. This application scales out and has a little bit of different interface to deal with the iPad resolution. All right.
Are they native apps or web apps?
Sorry?
Are they native apps? or
Native,
web apps?
yeah, native app. I'll get a little bit more into there's a interesting, we're looking a little bit more, especially on my team, where we don't have, we want to turn an application around pretty quickly. We have a compact JavaScript framework for our JavaScript web API, and you can do cool stuff like phone gap it and go that route. It's a little bit, you need to turn something around quicker. So story maps. So that's really ArcGIS Online. I want to talk a little more about story maps. It's a little bit close. It's pretty close to my heart. It's something that we work on quite a bit. So let me just go through a couple of these story maps that we have. These are ones that have been created by other folks within ESRI. So here's one based on a tour of the host cities of the Olympics. So kind of cool, gives you a little bit of a map context of where the Olympics were held, a little bit of history behind the games. Solar power, this one's, I kind of like this map actually. Again, this streams in, this is the same template that we just used to create the Wi-Fi map. Again, you have a nice description here. The layers that were published actually have a nice description, so that shows up as well in the table of contents. Shows you where the solar locations are to have solar plants and plants that are actually underway, working or in development. And this is a pretty neat one that I found the other day. This is a story map of, I guess there's an elevated I guess, park in New York City, which I haven't seen before. So it's kind of neat. Walks you through that, through where that elevated park is. Again, it allows you to tell a story. And let's see here, one that I was working on yesterday. Let's see. We, as I said, we make a bunch of web applications for our website, and we do a lot around disaster response when there's a natural disaster. So we're thinking a lot the last couple of days about the Republican National Convention, and there's a big hurricane coming that way. So we're possibly going to... I'm on camera, so I'm not going to... That's right. So here we have a storm surge that we put together, and this shows basically a Category 1 to a Category 4 hurricane, and it shows how far in the storm surge would go. So I had just a little symbol here for the convention center. This template that you see right here is one that we use pretty heavily. I'm going to show you a bunch of these apps on Azure.com that we've built. We first built this template as sort of a standalone service-based template where you would actually, hack into the JavaScript and change RESTful endpoints. We're making this now into a web map-driven template, so you could use the same template on ArcGIS Online. You can download it, you can just post it like we just saw. So let's see here. We built in some UI for changing like social media hashtags. So if I change this to be careful what I ask for here. You never know what turns up on Twitter. If I zoom out a little bit, what was a fun one over here? Oh, there we go. Actually, for some waves this weekend. Here we go. There's the one I was looking for. So this is the Florida hurricane evacuation. So another, let's jump into the some of those story maps that I was telling you about that my team's helped build. The map we just looked at is actually called the public information map. That's what we called it. And we've basically wired that into a bunch of different disaster types on Azure.com. We've got one for hurricanes, wildfires, flooding, severe weather, earthquakes. And we spent a lot of time designing these applications so that non-GIS folks, folks that are just casual users, folks in the media or viewers of the media could get value out of these mapping applications. So we try to stay away from are those, we've seen maps out there before that I could call them minesweeper maps. So it's a map with a whole bunch of stuff on it. You're poking through to see what the value is or the story is behind the map. But we're trying to have a little bit more of a guided experience. So what goes into this map, obviously, are all the operational layers like precipitation and active hurricane, storm surge. These are all powered by these things called live feeds. That's another component that my team's worked on. These live feeds effectively are just Python scripts, just straight up Python. They use a little bit of ESRI Python as well in there to pull data down from the web, from NOAA, from USGS, and push those into an ArcGIS server service and then serve them out as maps. So these are actually also available to anyone that wants to use them. So here's a public information map. These run all year long. At times there's no data in here. We tend to add a map, more of a historic map. If that happens, we're telling a story of a larger event. Again, we have some of the social media. We did a little bit of work with HTML5 and actually the canvas element. We did a little bit of a heat mapping kind of on the fly. So this template will actually, we're trying to push this up to GitHub at the moment as well. We've had a few folks take it and do some interesting things with it. So just getting it from ArcGIS.com. So we feel that GitHub would be a nice place for it to go. Another really popular one right now, obviously the fire, our fire application. There's, Northern California, it's pretty scary. There are a lot of fires going on there.
Where's Mineral, California?
Sorry?
Mineral, California. The town of Mineral.
Oh.
It's about to be burned down.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Where's that at? Is that
In Northern California.
So we have our public information map. We've got these aggregated live feeds that actually power those are the feeds that power that application, give it that rich operational data. And we actually saw a pretty cool, I guess, fork, if you will, of this application, of this public information map by a student who just saw one of our presentations at the ESRI user conference that happened about a week ago, and wired in the stain and base maps, which I think are gorgeous. They have these pretty incredible, watercolor. As we opened up with this, with the toner map and also their terrain map, so kind of cool. Okay, so developing with ArcGIS. Again, it's more of a configuring your mapping application. Instead of writing a ton of code like we've probably all done in the past to have your apps light up. In that environment, you're really adding the map content, any kind of metadata along with your map, the layers that you want to use as well as your symbology, and the maps map responsive design. Now we keep talking about web maps. Like what exactly is a web map? And in a nutshell, it's really a configuration of a bunch of layers and properties. So I'm just going to jump out real quick to the JavaScript side. So there is a JavaScript web API you can use to program against ArcGIS Online. And in order to create a web application from an ArcGIS Online map, it's really as simple as just these lines of code. So all those layers, everything that we saw would just come down by that web map ID. That comes down, and it comes down as JSON. So here's a snippet of what the JSON looks like. You have your operational layers. We kind of divide them out in terms of the JSON model into operational layers and base map layers. Base map layers, obviously base maps. Operational layers are layers that you kind of snap on top of your base maps to tell a particular story. So that's the mystery really behind what a web map is. It really is just a configuration file that gets passed down when it's queried. So the ArcGIS iPhone application is the same thing. It asks for that web map ID, it pulls down that JSON file, and then makes requests to get the data down from ArcGIS Online, and wherever those services are pointed to. Whether it's a hosted service, whether it's a service that's on maybe your own ArcGIS. Okay, so there's a couple of developer APIs that come along with ArcGIS Online. There actually is a portal API for ArcGIS Online. You can call into ArcGIS Online and query maps. You can query tags. You can manipulate the users to some degree. From the web mapping side, it's a JavaScript HTML5 API, and there is a compact JavaScript framework there if you want to get into the phone gap kind of stuff. What happens, the difference really between the JavaScript API and the compact framework API is our JavaScript API is built on Dojo for more of the UI framework. A lot of that's ripped out so that the UI will really be up for you to, there is some, but it's a lot smaller footprint in Dojo. There's a Silverlight API for those who are still writing a lot of Silverlight code, as well as Flex. And then, as I mentioned briefly before, there are Runtime SDKs. So the runtime that we just saw was the iOS Runtime SDK. There's an Android and several others. We'll get into those in a second. The big thing about the runtimes is that you can run local content. You can have data stored on the device itself. So package up perhaps a layer with your application. Let it run without internet connectivity. Or even call an analysis. So package up a geoprocessing service like the density analysis that we just ran, have it run locally on that device. So the runtime SDKs that we have right now are Windows, Linux, Windows Mobile, iOS, which we just saw, Android, Windows Phone.
Does the iOS work on a Mac? Or is it only for iOS?
And we have a Mac.
What? Right on cue. Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
Was that slide more particular order?
You are, yeah. And we have it, so we have a Mac flavor, so it's a Cocoa, basically a Cocoa SDK. So let's take a look at that right now, actually. And this is a sneak peek you guys are getting. It was shown at the user conference, so it's I'm being sneaky, but not too sneaky. It has been announced. It's not out yet. It's still I would say it's in alpha right now. So this is the consistent ArcGIS viewer. You can go through and this leverages the portal API as well to make a call into ArcGIS Online. I'm going to pull down maps. You can see I typed in Wi-Fi, and I got a bunch of maps. Let's see here. Let's try to find one that. There we go. So pretty neat. I don't really have time here. Let's move back to the slides.
So is that an Objective-C SDK or?
Yes. Yeah. Have fun. These are all there's some links that I'll post all these slides up to the GeoMeetup's website afterwards. But you can start playing with ArcGIS Online. This URL will take you to a ArcGIS Online organizational account. You can play with a personal account, and if you want to get into publishing your own services, you can sign up and get an organizational account. You get I think it's about 200 or so credits to play with, try publishing some services. Some of your data, make some maps. There's also an EDN link here, which is the ESRI Developer Network. If you're interested in doing some, working with the software from a developer perspective, this is a great link to check out in terms of getting some of the software bits. Also, a public information map. Here's the bit.ly addresses I made to kind of shorten that out, as well as the aggregated live feeds. So all those Python scripts for the aggregated live feeds are all on arcgis.com. Download them, hack away. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Questions?
Sure.
Sort of been a lot of discussion about offline learning. I'm wondering, SE is but I'm wondering if there's a workflow plan for remote collection. You can sync and publish stuff. Upload stuff.
So,
you got ArcGIS and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. So from a data perspective, from like an offline type thing, for the iOS runtime, there's a couple ArcTag, right? A lot of these products do what you're saying. From the runtime perspective, that's coming into the different runtimes where if you're collecting offline and you have connectivity, those features will get pushed back up into a feature service and whatever's pulled that data down.
Yeah, you just order people, they have web browsers and mobile devices, and it's
Yeah.
all those.
Right. Yeah.
So I saw you drag CSV files,
Right.
But if I want to programmatically either push data or reference data, is there a way to do that? Is that portal API let me do that?
Yeah, there's what you can do is push it through a feature, so the feature services have that capability. So once you publish a feature service, you have control over. We saw that when I went to publish that one layer, there's a capability. It's like a tile of feature services. On a feature services, there's capabilities too. It's a view only. Can users edit data and push it out? Can they update data? Can they change geometries? Can they change the attributes? You can track who's actually touched the data, which is kind of
So I need to publish a feature service and ArcGIS Online will consume it.
Yeah.
I can control it.
Yep, so then your clients can then push up data from that perspective.
Do you have confidence scale for your geocoder with regard to its accuracy?
Yeah, it's using a couple of different it's using NavTech, a couple of different levels of NavTech data right now. We're pushing in other POIs. I don't have that number on me, like right off the top of my head.
But it doesn't, if I were to geocode on your thing, would I be able to know whether this was a high confidence
Right.
versus a low confidence as far as the XY that gives me?
I think they passed that back as a property for the result candidates that you get back. At least there's a couple of different geocoders. There's a world geocoder, which kind of collapses a whole bunch of them. And then there's the individual geocoders. The individual ones for like North America and so on, like those actually, I know for a fact those pass back the confidence levels. For the world, I'm not sure.
Is there a way to get access to the raster data values? Kind of like a web coverage service? I mean, you mentioned features come out of JSON.
Right. We have a product called Image Server, and that's what Image Server does. It passes back the raw values from a ArcGIS Online perspective. For those two service types that we have right now, it's you're either going to get back a raw feature service value from individual features, or you're going to get back the image itself. Cut down the values. More of a operational layer.
So you can be devious in code something into 256
Yeah.
colors and then...
You probably could do something where you use both a feature service and a hosted service, a cache service, and the feature service could have a point for each pixel which carries a value. But I think Image Server is the right way to go for that scenario. Yes.
Excellent question there. Any access to the road network?
Yeah, from you can build, one of the features of desktop is you can build like your own road networks, your own street networks, and then host those as network layers. And you can do your own routing. So one of the scenarios is wells, right, for petroleum companies when they're driving out in the middle of some area that's not actually mapped. That's how they would go about doing that workflow. But from an ArcGIS Online perspective, routing is something that will soon be coming into the fold.
Have you seen any network stuff coming in open data? Like garbage truck or that kind of stuff?
Yeah, not sure. Yeah, it's a good question. The road networks are, there's a lot of money there. Could take Tiger files.
So does ArcGIS Online use ArcGIS 10 or 10.1?
10.1.
10.1. So a lot of performance improvements between 10 and 10.1?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Is it based on tile caching or is it? Because you changed the strategy of the tile caching, right? Between 10 and 10.1?
Not so much.
No?
Not so much, no. In ArcGIS Online, there was a switch a little while ago to have more of the Bing, Google, Web Mercator style tiling that was there instead of WGS 84. But that's, from a desktop perspective, it's like it functions with any different spatial reference. But from our hosted services perspective, definitely the Web Mercator is where that's at.
You're only supporting Mercator, right? You're not supporting the other formats anymore.
You still can publish stuff with ArcGIS Server. I believe if you add a different service type, it'll just reproject it to that base map. Or, you know what? If your base map is in a different projection, it'll take.
It doesn't, because in New York City we didn't, we couldn't do it.
Okay.
So ESRI has to
It
convert
went back to
everything.
Web Mercator. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I've got a separate small region that I use ArcGIS Online and make one of those independent maps that you showed us here. Right. If I'm zooming now, I've got an object of tiles and such. Can I serve that independently from my own web server, or do I have to have an ArcGIS server or an Image server?
It would have to come from ArcGIS Server.
Even if I didn't need the locating coordinates, I'm just basically zooming in my fixed area.
I guess it depends on from the let's see. If it's just like an image, you could always just take it in like or rectify it in desktop. You know, it's one way to go about doing it. If it's a whole bunch of different tiles, then I need to probably hack something together that makes some money on it.
The last question.
I had a question about the ArcGIS Online base map content that's available to the desktop. What, if any, limitations are there, let's say, the imagery, printing and publishing that on a paper map?
From limitations from like a
Licensing
resolution perspective?
Or like a licensing limitations?
I believe if one of the functions that one of the newer things in ArcGIS Online is that there's now that attribution that comes along with in the map viewer. So like any layer that you add, if there's attribution, it will come up. I'm assuming that's as long as you have attribution there, but
So I was thinking more like if you're making a map that's a paper map, if you're going to print it and put in a report, it has the ArcGIS Online imagery in it. Is it okay to print that and publish it, put in a report?
And just a report for your organization, is that the?
Yeah, or for, say it's like a product.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
I can get back to you on that. Actually, yeah, take that one.
Okay.
My email.
Okay.
Thank you, send me that question, I can follow up.
All right. Thank
All right.
you. Thank you, Derrick.